Hey everyone, it's been a bit of time and I am back to making content, and of course I have the other announcement in the title. I'm going to speedrun through the small content updates that I have here, just so that that's all out of the way, but I basically have 4 small things to talk about. First off, members only videos in terms of the post commentaries are done. They are not going to happen anymore, and I've posted about that on the communities tab, and in the previous video a good bit, that decision was fully made. They will now be uploaded to the second channel for all the ones that were there previously as members only content, so you can expect that to go up shortly, and I will instead have a new members only perk, which is going to be members first uploads. Obviously this can't happen for every single upload that I do. Sometimes we're gonna get new news and I just have to upload that whenever we can, but for most videos, if you're a member, you will get videos 2 days in advance, and I'm hoping to keep that consistent. Another update is the upload schedule. It is going to be dropping from 3 to 2 videos per week. And it might go back to 3 videos per week when there are large news cycles, but during eras like this where there just isn't really much new to talk about and videos are struggling in their performance, it is just not feasible to upload as much as I did before, and I think that's also easier with the amount of people working on videos right now and how often we can produce them to match the schedule. The plan right now is 3 discussions and 1 gameplay every 2 weeks, but we'll have to see exactly how that works out. But that is the plan going forward. Finally, I have some new art courtesy of Chibi, so you can expect these to appear in the little icons in the corners. Just a small little update to that I am very happy to talk about. But yeah, that's really about it when it comes to the content side of things. The break has been very good for me. I feel reinvigorated and excited to do content. Let's now address the elephant in the title. So, the question on everyone's minds is, are you retiring from competitive Splatoon, and if so, why? The answer to the first question is mostly yes. I hate the term retiring personally. This is a damn video game. I don't play this for money or anything, so I've always disliked that. But I feel like there has to be a term for not playing it anymore after doing this for almost 10 years now. So, hiatus, whatever. I basically want to say that yeah, I'm absolutely done with competing right now. Is there a small percentile chance that something will happen to where I might do it again in the future? Maybe, but I don't consider it likely, and to talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about how I came to this decision. So, when I started competitive Splatoon, way back when, I started it with the just naive goal that a bunch of other people probably started with, which is, I got to the top rank in the game, I got to S+99, that was the most you could do in Splatoon 1, and I wanted to become better. I found out about competitive, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I want to be the best player in the whole wide world, right? That's just, I know a lot of people start out that way, of wanting to become world champion. This was before there even was a world championship for this game, but I feel like that's a very standard thing that a lot of people have. And I think one of the strengths that I have is I'm always enjoy the spirit of improving. The idea of getting better and measuring that and working towards that has been one of my strengths with anything I invest myself into. And so competitive has been something where I've been able to really consistently make progress and improve throughout the years. And there's so many different small events I could talk about that are important to me. But I think the most important one I want to mention today, and my technically highest result in terms of these kind of events, is PAX in 2019, the NA Championship that happened there, where we were 1 game off going to Worlds, the event where you compete to become that world champion. That was my goal. And when I played that event and I lost, the loss obviously hurt, but we barely expected to make it in the first place, let alone almost win the event. We were super under practiced for it because we didn't even think we would make it to the finals. And my thought there, instead of being upset or anything, was, dude, I can absolutely make it back there. We can definitely do better. I didn't really struggle with motivation before, but this event became an I need to get back here, I need to prove myself, I can totally do this kind of thing. I think if there were NA championships that happened after this one, I would have had a good chance of doing it. Unfortunately, the year after this was 2020, and in early 2020, there was a pandemic that happened. And so Nintendo events to, qualify for Worlds or go in person or anything were pretty much shut down in the dark. I still had a lot of good things happen during this period of the game. I competed well in JP tournaments, I had a few major wins, I was feeling good about my play individually, but in terms of being able to prove myself on that stage again, the opportunity would wait around 2 years or so. By the time that had passed, I had been mostly focused on content creation. In the last year of Splatoon 2, when shooter meta really took over, I basically just kind of played range and dynamo for fun. Like, I played scrims and tournaments with them, but like, if I was trying to be the best player in the world, I would not pick those weapons. It's just not a good idea. But I didn't really care, nothing was happening. Unfortunately, by the end of Splatoon 2, there was secret qualifiers to be able to go and compete in the tournament before Splatoon 3 came out to, try to be an NA champion. This wouldn't qualify for Worlds, but it was back to this stage. And I didn't have a group for it, I wasn't practicing weapons for it, and I missed out on that. Luckily, eventually Last Resort happened, and we got a lot of chances. There were a lot of Nintendo events happening, and we took a while to perform well. But eventually we hit the summer of 2023, where we were doing well enough, we were thriving despite the meta shifts, probably not being great for the team, and we likely should have made it back, but we didn't. We ended up losing the event, even when we had the opportunity to make it back, and that tournament loss was really rough for me. Not in the sense of the tournament itself, but the experience of a Nintendo event in person with friends was really fun, and that was my goal to make it back there, and, I consider it a big failure that didn't work out. It ended up being something that, I recovered from and we learned a lot from, as what tends to happen with your worst losses. But as a team, Last Resort didn't end up lasting much longer. I was in kind of a crossroads because for the most part when it comes to the teams I've been on over the years, it's been me making them. I've scouted out players, put groups together, and worked to build synergy and get to the top. And it's worked pretty damn consistently, but it does take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I did not want to do that anymore. I was sick of that process and how long it took, and I instead had an opportunity coaching Moonlight. I ended up doing a coaching session for Nolan, and it ended up floating the idea around of what if I just coached the team and moved to that position. And at the time, if I'm being totally honest, I wanted to do this, and Moonlight was a group of people that I'd become very close friends with, but at the time I always saw it as a temporary thing. I'm really happy to be here, but I'm sure at some point I'm gonna end up being a player again. And it was, nothing to do with Moonlight or anything, it was just I had been a player for years and years and years now, and I thought for sure at some point there would be an opportunity or something I would jump on. I'm still actively doing pickups and practicing the game, I'm entering tournaments and all that. And instead, what happened was the worst individual period I had ever had. And it was especially bad because it wasn't anything to do with the game. I had been in an era of Splatoon 3 that was aggressive, Blaster was good, Range Blaster literally got its dream kit that I wanted, and it was OP, and I had no excuse at all to not be good in this game, and I was falling off. I had some of my worst tournament results in the middle to late 2024, and I felt it. I was mentally at my absolute lowest. I was crushed. I was like, I had fallen off. I am so far away from my goals. I had completely failed to get back to where I was, and I don't think I could recover from this. And I got desperate to really try things out. I was playing different weapons, playing with different groups. I was playing the game more often than I had before. I was trying to make something work. Then out of nowhere, by complete coincidence, was the In The Zone Dreadringer run, and we had this insane breakout performance. I got 4 separate upsets over top level groups, and all of a sudden, I had figured it out. And over the next 6 months or so, I had continued to play Dreadringer, a weapon that fit me very well. I figured out my stuff, and throughout multiple different groups, I got multiple results over some of the best players in the game. And when it came to my mental, I had proved it to myself. I can compete at this level, I can beat the very best of players, and I figured this would be something to slingshot me back into the competitive sphere. Instead, in summer, I barely played any tournaments. I had a few LAN events that I played with pickups for it, nothing that I was super invested in, and even when I got a group for it, I played with Isabel, Jay, and Kara for a bit with a double Reef Slider group that also was starting to do pretty well and starting to get a few upsets, but I didn't really have the momentum that I felt before with it. I wasn't really as motivated. And I thought this would be fixed after the latest LAN. Obviously huge LAN event just happened, and Brella got some buffs, which is a weapon I also really like, so this will fix it. But when I tried to play after that LAN event in early September, I felt nothing. I was playing Brella or playing Dread, and I honestly just felt nothing. I wasn't playing well, and normally that's where this process starts that I have been so good at throughout my career, but instead I ended up not really focused at all on improving. I was making the same mistakes and the same problems over and over again, and I noticed that, but I wasn't in the cycle that I normally was in to get out of that. So I figured, I'm taking a content break anyway, might as well take a competitive break. I'm playing a bunch of Hollow Knight, I'll probably play Silksong, I have a lot of people I'm hanging out with. I'm sure I can take some time right now and, take a break from the game, and then I'll feel reinvigorated. And I did. I spent like a month of almost not playing the game outside of when I really needed to. And then I came back to the game, and no matter what I did, I felt the same way. And I started to understand what I was feeling. It wasn't a problem with the game. I'm not saying the game is perfect, but I've dealt with like Stingray era. This is nothing. I started to notice that I had the feeling of satisfaction. What once used to be a result that I felt the need to get back to get back to NA championships, to get back to worlds, I instead just felt proud of myself. I was like, wow, I might not have made it all the way to my naive goal, but I still made it incredibly far, and I should be happy with that. And then I was similarly proud of my results, earlier this year. I had fallen off, I had struggled, and I pulled myself out of it, and I proved to myself that I could still succeed. But as soon as I did that, that was the last thing I felt I needed to prove to myself. I no longer had something that I really cared to strive for as much. Instead, I am simply happy and content with the accomplishments that I already have, which isn't a bad thing. I think that's a really great mental spot that I'm at. But that mental spot also killed my drive to seek for anything more. And it's at this point where I realized that I want to do other stuff instead. I've had a lot of personal developments that have been good for me this year, and I will also briefly add that I've been increasingly cautious over wrist issues I've had over the past few years, and motion controls are one of the main stressors. And in general, I've been spending more time away from competitive Splatoon. I still really like competitive Splatoon, and frankly, I'm still pretty involved. I still run this YouTube channel, and I still coach Moonlight, and coaching Moonlight is where my investment lies, where my competitive nature is still there, where I'm still looking and thinking and analyzing and trying to find every little way we can do better, and I'm still enjoying the process of figuring things out, of being invested in our tournament runs. The role of coach for them, the thing that I thought would be temporary, ended up being something where I feel perfectly comfortable. It's the best team environment I could ever ask for, and frankly, that's all I feel I need to do going forward. Will I still play the game? Of course. Splatoon's still a fun game, I'm still a fan of the series, and I'm still a fan of competitive play who's going to be doing my best to try and put the work in to help the scene succeed, which has always been my goal. What I want to do doesn't align with the competitive grind anymore, and you know what? That's okay. I had no idea when this journey was gonna hit this break or end or whatever it is, but I'm fine with it. I'm sure there are going to be points where I'm gonna be missing the grind, but I still feel involved in the scene in a meaningful way, and I'm very motivated to continue pushing all of those goals the best I can. So that's really what happened with me. I hope that's a sufficient explanation, and I hope that if you enjoy competitive Splatoon, you will watch people who aren't me at it. There are so many other cool names and teams and people to take a look at, and I will still be around doing more content with Moonlight, so if you're also a fan of us, I highly appreciate anyone who's supporting our competitive endeavors. And finally, I just want to say thanks to anyone who supported my competitive journey. It was an amazing experience I'm really glad I got to have. That's it with this update video. Sorry it ended up being a long one, and I'm looking forward to doing content again. Thank you all so much for watching, and let's get back into it.